to the very first episode of our podcast, where we're going to be sharing our top tips, tricks, and study hacks that stick. It's a bit of a tongue of but yeah, we're going to be sharing loads of information, which I wish I knew when I was doing my GCSEs.
Very good.
Just don't plant that one in there for everybody. But yeah, we're going to be talking about study timetables today, kind of the benefits of them, how to make them, and going into some detail about flexibility, prioritizing, managing, all of this exciting stuff to come. So yeah, but firstly, how are you feeling, Will? Are we excited?
I'm very excited, Blair. Very excited. This is the first ever podcast.
I'm so excited.
It's actually happening.
I'm so excited. It's been a long time in the running, and I feel like we're finally here.
Oh, I'm very, very excited. How are you doing, Blair?
Again, same. Super excited. I'm buzzing. I'm really, really excited to get some of this knowledge down. And I think where we've been practicing and sorting everything out, and in so many discussions, now that we're finally here, it's just like, it's almost a bit relieving in a way.
Yeah.
Now I can yap for the next 25 minutes and be quite happy.
And we've got so much information to share.
Absolutely.
That will be so immensely helpful
for
people studying their GCSEs.
Yeah, definitely.
Amazing. So today we're talking about timetables?
Study timetables, yeah.
Okay, cool.
I did a poll on Instagram. I asked some of our followers on there to get some inside knowledge in terms of what BrightTeach's followers are kind of thinking about study timetables. And do you know, 50% of our followers do not make study timetables at all.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which is a fairly large number.
Yeah.
It's a fairly large number. And I think it was like 41% of people make them 2 weeks before.
Got it.
So not that far in advance. They're either making them last minute or not at all. And I think looking at kind of the benefits of study timetables, it's something that's the reason why I wanted to talk about this today, basically. Because I think it's a really beneficial school tool for people to be using and making the most of.
Why do you think so many people are making them? Is it that they just don't see the benefit of them? And so maybe we should talk about that?
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe people don't know how to make them?
Definitely. I think it's a combination, because in school you always get told, make some kind of study timetable, make a plan for your revision. And the way that they kind of explain it isn't necessarily detailed to the point where you actually know what you need to be doing.
Got it.
It's one thing to say, go make a study timetable. And it's another thing to say, okay, this is how you're going to do it. This is how you're going to outline it, etc., etc.
Well, thank God we're here.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Okay,
Blessing.
great. So why is a timetable so important?
So there's a whole range of different benefits from study timetables. There's probably three main ones. So first one, making a study timetable is going to reduce your stress. Because if you allocate all your time correctly and you kind of outline how everything is supposed to fit in, it means you are going to have enough time to cover everything you need to be covering. So you're not going to have that last minute cramming where you want to pull your hair out and you're thinking, I have left everything too late. So reducing stress is really helpful. Making sure you've got a balance in there, again, really helpful, because it can feel a little bit like all you're doing is revising when it comes to exam periods. Making sure you're scheduling time for your extracurricular activities, seeing some friends, making sure you're having breaks is really, really important as well. Yeah. And the other thing which is really beneficial from study timetables is it gives you this really nice, clear overview of exactly what you're doing when. So it means in terms of organisation and structure and making sure that everything is covered to a detail where you feel confident. You're basically a really well-rounded approach if you have a study timetable.
Got it. That's a really good overview as to why and a little bit of how as well. So what's the first step, do you think?
So I would say first step, prioritising all of your tasks.
Okay.
So how that can look, what I do for myself is I'll get my specification and I'll kind of go through and put, either you can highlight with 3 different colours. Let's say you've got a red, orange or yellow and a green. Then you can give yourself like this traffic light system where you can identify your weaker areas and your stronger areas, or you can do it with smiley faces and like a face and a sad face. It takes a little bit longer if you do it that way, but it's quite entertaining. And basically you're going to identify which areas you're going to need to spend more time, because if you've got a red topic versus a green topic, the green topic may only need 20 minutes of coverage if it's already in your head, if you've already maybe revised it for a topic test, versus something which maybe you missed a lesson, maybe you were sick at school and you didn't actually, you have no idea. That's going to require more time. So by giving yourself this priority list, you can then go and input the time into your study timetable.
That's very good. Do you think you should prioritize subjects you're good at or subjects that you're not so good at?
So I was told in school you should always swallow your frogs.
Okay.
Which is a term I have never heard anybody else say after being at school. So I'm not sure if my teacher made that up.
I think there's a book called.
There is a book. Yeah, there is a book. But yeah, so starting with some of the more challenging areas and really getting them down mean that you're not leaving them right to just before the exam. So if you, in a way, leave the nicer areas before your exam, firstly, it means the more challenging areas, if they do require a bit more time, you can still focus on them when you've got the time instead of leaving them the night before. But also if you think about the way you're going to feel, let's say you're revising a day before your exam for your last day of revision. If you're trying to tackle the most difficult topic that you have, how are you going to feel going into your exam the next day versus something where you're like, I'm so confident. I know exactly what I'm doing here.
Wow, I never thought of that.
Different mental space.
Yeah, like if you're leaving it to the last minute, you're not going to feel confident at all going into that exam. Wow, okay, fantastic. And so I'm trying to think of the difference it would make if the subjects I was the worst at, I spent loads of time on it and became the best at that subject.
Definitely.
I would feel a lot better.
Definitely. And when you get into your exam as well and you open the page and you see that topic, which was a red one and kind of caused you pain in your brain. If you see that question and you read it and you think, oh, I actually know what I'm going to say here, it makes you feel so much more confident in terms of the exam. And that's something we can talk about in another episode as well. Kind of, if you come up with in a test, an exam question which you maybe don't know, do you do it then? Do you leave it to the end? That's a little sprinkle for later down the line. Yeah. But there we go.
Oh, that's very good. Okay, great. So we're making this timetable.
Yeah.
And do I put in just like maths, English?
So you've raised a good point there already. Okay. So instead of saying maths, biology, chemistry, if we break it down into the smaller topic areas, it makes it feel more manageable. Because if I say to you, go and revise biology, you're going to be like, well, that's quite a lot in biology. Yeah. But if I say go and revise biological molecules, that's a decent sized topic. You can manage that. You finish that in the afternoon, maybe. So by breaking it down, not only does it make you feel more in control and less overwhelmed, but also because you're outlining exactly what you're supposed to be revising. Let's say you've allocated an hour to go over biological molecules. You know that you need to cover that topic in the time that you have. Whereas if you say biology, it can be, if you're like me, maybe get a little bit distracted sometimes, a little bit sidetracked. You can start in one section of biology and then realise, oh, I haven't actually covered that yet, and jump across, and then you're not necessarily getting to the detail level that you need to be. So breaking down your topics into more manageable chunks is really beneficial. And also how you're going to manage your time as well within that is super important too.
Okay, cool. So how should you manage your time then? Should we just I'm making my timetable. I put in biological molecules instead of biology, maybe. And I'm like, okay, right. Every day I'm going to get home at 3:30. And then I'm going to revise until 8 o'clock in the evening, non-stop. I feel like a lot of people do that.
A lot of people do that. Right? A lot of people do that.
What's the problem with that?
Well, firstly, I think you're going to have square eyes at the end of looking at your screen for that long. But so basically, you want to break your time up more than that. Nobody's attention's, I'd be very impressed if your attention span is that long.
It's not.
That's where I ask for tips from the listeners, because at that point, I don't have that kind of skill. Yeah. So breaking it down, there's this technique called the Pomodoro technique, which is a really good one to be using. So that's where you work in kind of 25-minute intervals. In between each 25-minute interval, take a little 5-minute break. In that time, move away from your desk. Don't just go on your phone. Go downstairs, make a cup of tea, get yourself a little snack. Walk up and down the stairs 3 times. Whatever you do, it doesn't really matter. Just don't sit still at your desk and pull out TikTok.
Yes. You will be there for hours.
You'll be there for, your break will no longer be 5 minutes.
And it won't feel like much of a break either.
Exactly, because you've just transferred your eyes from one screen to another screen. So you're not really going to get anywhere. And then once you've done your 4 kind of 25-minute, 5-minute Pomodoros, you can take a longer break. So whether that's half an hour, or if it's lunchtime, maybe you want an hour by the time you've cooked your food and eaten it. Whatever that kind of longer break looks like to you. But using this Pomodoro technique has been proven to increase the amount of information you're absorbing in your brain.
Oh my.
Gives you a proper rest. And also staying off your phone, I cannot stress that enough in your breaks. It really makes a difference. It's like the information you absorb is like 70% more than if you go on your phone straight away. Which, if you think about, it's just 5 minutes. It's literally a 5-minute break. If you think about that huge increase of information, it makes sense to go and walk up and down the stairs 3 times.
Yeah. I remember, like, when I was studying, I think my parents were like, why can't you sit down for ages and just study non-stop? Because I think it's compared to, like, the workplace. But there's a difference between trying to learn information and trying to carry out a task. So a task you can keep going with. But when you're trying to learn things, 25-minute blocks with 5-10 minute breaks to actually let that knowledge settle is so important.
100%.
So your brain doesn't have time, doesn't have the capacity to just continuously take in information.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so for when you're making all of these study timetables and stuff, it's really important to make sure that you're allocating these breaks in as well. And, you know, something you can do, if you're like me, when I was doing my revision for my GCSEs, I felt like all I was doing was revising. It felt like I didn't have a social life or anything. All I was doing was revising. And if I wasn't, I felt really guilty. It was like, oh, I should be doing revision. I've got an exam in like a month's time, so I don't really know what to do with myself if I'm not revising. But what I did is, as a technique to kind of overcome that, was I would work, let's say, from 10 until 2, obviously with allocated breaks in there as well. But then I would arrange to see a friend at 3. And so if I didn't get the work done, if, let's say, I took a longer break randomly, and sometimes you will end up going on your phone. That happens, you know, we're all human. We can try and avoid it as much as possible. But let's say I did take a longer break by accident, then it would mean I would have to push back seeing my friend. So I get a little bit less time with my friend. So then it's like a reward. If I do my revision, if I get it all done, if I follow this timetable that I've made, I can go out and see my friend and go and watch a movie or whatever I ended up doing. But also it gives you this allocated time away from your revision, where you don't have to feel guilty because you've done your revision in the morning. So that goes back to what I said at the beginning about kind of this balance and this kind of, if you think about it like a scale, if all you're doing is revising, horrible. But if you've got this nice balance, you know, life feels more easy. It feels more manageable.
It's really good. So it's got to be sustainable as well.
100%.
It's got to be balanced.
Yeah, realistic timetables, super important. And I think something which a lot of people don't do, which can be why people stop using their study timetables, is they're not flexible or able to be adapted. So for example, if I make a study timetable, let's say I've got Friday afternoon, I will leave that as like an emergency slot. Because sometimes in life, you know, again, we're all human, stuff comes up. Let's say you've got 3 hours of revision to do on Tuesday morning and you need to go to a doctor's appointment and you only find out the day before, you didn't know, that couldn't have been avoided. Then you can use your emergency time on Friday to quickly chuck those topics in. And it means the rest of your study timetable can be kept to, keeping this kind of idea of consistency and the frequency in which we're going over the material. And it just gets shunted along. Whereas if you block your timetable in straight from wake up to go to bed, if you're stuck in traffic even on the way home from school, you know, this little bit of flexible time at the end of the week is usually when I chuck it in. It can be wherever, makes a difference.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic. Yeah. That's really good. So how would you like actually go about making it? Like, what are you getting a Word? Are you getting up like what are you getting a piece of paper?
Depends on how you like your information. Okay. So for me, I like everything to be quite colourful because I have dyslexia and ADHD. And if something is interesting for me to look at, I am not looking at it. Good. So what I do with mine is I build them in Excel. Cool. I'll have the days of the week across the top, times down the side. And so I'll put in times I'm in school or class or whatever first, because I have to go to school. Of course. Then I'll put in the times of my extracurricular activities. Let's say I play netball on a Thursday, stick that in because equally not going anywhere. Yeah. And then I will allocate before the rest of my revision time, I'll put my emergency block in.
It's good.
So that this like adaptable time is in there. Yes. So I'll stick that probably on a Friday afternoon, whatever, maybe at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And then after that, I can add in all of these rest of my topics, so biological molecules on Monday at 4:30 or whatever, leaving time for breaks, beautifully done. Absolutely. Then I'll colour code all the subjects, make it look super beautiful, and I'll have this really good overview. And something, if you want to take it a step further, a bonus step, is if you create in a different cell a formula. You can put how many days until your exam divided by how many topics you have to cover. And then it will tell you, oh, you need to be covering 2.3 topics a day.
Wow.
And so by doing that, it will allow you to see what pace you need to be going through these topics. So let's say you've got 2 topics to cover a day, but you know that biological molecules is going to take you twice as long as mitosis because you don't really understand it. So then you might give biological molecules an hour and mitosis half an hour, and then you've got half an hour to do some past paper questions at the end. So it means you can have this really detailed overview, exactly what you're covering, leaving time to do some practice questions, because we can't just revise the content. We need to be testing our knowledge with active revision techniques.
Yes.
And then you'll have this lovely study timetable, which you can print off, stick on your wall, stick on your door, stick on the back of the bathroom door, if that tickles your fancy.
On your ceiling, wherever you like.
Yeah, wherever you like.
Can you go? Okay, cool. You touched on some different ways of revising.
Yeah.
Should we build that into our timetable as well?
Definitely. I would say so.
Talk me through like a couple of different ways of revising.
So,
Actually, first, what's the wrong way to revise?
if anybody listening, I'm going to speak directly into the mic. This is aimed. This is targeted. I'm going to talk quieter so I don't RIP the headphone users. If you are listening to this, I'm going cross-eyed, and all you do is read your notes and highlight them, we have a problem. We have a problem now.
Damn.
No, I'm joking. So if you're one of those people who all they do is revise by reading, highlighting, and that's it, the information is not going in your head in the best way possible.
Yeah.
I'm asking you now, change it up.
You're absolutely right.
So instead of doing that, maybe make some flashcards, test yourself, get a pile of flashcards in your hands. The ones you know, pass into the pile on the left. Ones you don't know, to the right. You know, that's a great way of testing yourself while you're also writing the cards out. That's going to use your muscle memory, get everything all fired up.
Yeah.
Say what you're writing out loud as well. Then you're getting it in an auditory technique. Past paper questions. Again, fantastic. And one thing that people do is a lot of the time they like write the whole answer for the past paper question, which is fantastic if you're practicing your timing for exams.
Okay.
But if you want to just check if you have the knowledge, you don't need to write it down in full sentences. Literally bullet point it. It means you can go through quicker. So if you've got 20 questions, let's say they're 3-4 markers, bullet point. Don't write them full out. And then you can move to the mark scheme, check if you're getting the keywords, because that's how you get the marks.
Yes.
Check the keywords, and then you've saved probably 5 minutes from your full stops, capital letters, and but and becauses. Just by going straight to the point. So it's really about trying to be as efficient as possible and maximize the time that you're spending so that you can have time to do other fun things.
Yes. I think when you haven't covered a topic before or you're not as confident on the topic, it's about those knowledge recall questions. So flashcards, for example, there's a couple other techniques. And then it's about, okay, now I've got that knowledge. How do I apply it into the exam situation? And then going through those past papers and mark them yourself. Mark them yourself because you will see how they mark the questions.
Absolutely.
Like if they might want a specific wording. Like even depending on your exam board, they might want you to say, you might even write the correct answer and they might mark it wrong because you haven't answered it in the way that they want you to answer. And the only way that you can learn that is by marking those papers yourself.
Definitely.
Get really familiar with those mark schemes. It's the best possible thing to do once you know the knowledge.
Definitely.
Once you know the knowledge.
And it's such an important skill to develop because, you know, it might be... Biology, I think, is one of the more strict ones at GCSE in terms of the keywords. I'm pretty sure that's the worst one. You think it's bad now? It gets so much worse at A-level. It gets so much worse. So by developing it as a skill now, having the keywords, using the mark schemes, it means the rest of your education journey is going to feel like a walk in... Maybe it won't feel like a walk in the park, but it will feel like more of a walk in the park.
Yeah, it'll be a lot easier.
Yeah,
So we're putting that in our timetable. We're saying like, okay, I'm going to do flashcards in this time. And then maybe when I'm more confident, I'm going to do some past paper questions.
Absolutely.
You're actually physically putting that in your timetable.
Absolutely. And you don't have to do a timetable like a week at a time. If you want to make sure you are so organized and so on top of things, unlike the people who don't make timetables at all, you can turn around and make your study timetable at the beginning of term, if that's what tickles your fancy, or a month before your exam or whatever. And you can have 1 week is, as you said, your flashcards week. Make your flashcards, make your revision notes. Don't spend hours on making the title look beautiful, because that's where I've been victim to that before. I lost so much time during my GCSEs. It was like it was trending to have those calligraphy titles where you write in a highlighter and then on top with a fine line pen. It just do you know exactly what I mean?
I know what you
mean. But yeah, so first week could be flashcards. Second week could be past paper questions, testing yourself. Third week could be, what areas did I not know in my past paper questions?
Good.
Revise those, go back over.
Yeah.
Because one of the strengths of doing all these past paper questions is it's going to allow you to identify areas which maybe need a little bit more work. So by using all of those different techniques, you're going to get to the day before your exam and turn around and be like, I'm so confident. I know exactly what's going on.
I love that feeling.
Yeah.
I want all of our listeners to have that
Absolutely.
feeling.
That's what I'm going for.
Absolutely. Great.
Yeah.
So, like, we've talked about how to make the timetable.
Yeah.
We've talked about where to start.
Yeah.
We've talked about dividing it up into manageable chunks.
Yeah.
So important. Having those breaks to let the knowledge soak in.
Yeah.
Realistic.
Yeah.
Got to make them realistic.
Yeah.
A
little bit flexible. With your emergency time.
Yeah. Different types of techniques.
Absolutely. Your brain is like a sponge. You know that one episode of SpongeBob where he gets dehydrated and he's just like this little crusty thing? That's your brain before you start your revision journey.
That's right.
As we increase our flexibility and put a study timetable, they're like little drops of water. Some active revision techniques. You know, a little bit of exercise in there.
Oh, wow.
Taking a break. Your sponge of a brain is going to absorb all the water, otherwise known as knowledge, and then you're going to just be fantastic. And it makes it feel so much more manageable and you feel so much more confident.
Sounds like one happy brain.
Sounds like a really happy brain.
Brilliant. And we're also prioritizing some of those weaker subjects as well.
Swallow your frogs.
Swallow your frogs.
There we go.
Wonderful.
Yeah. But I think overall, study timetables are a fantastic thing to be using. There was a study done which they found people who used study timetables, their academic performance went up by 70%.
Wow.
Which is a massive statistic that I probably should have said at the beginning of the episode, but if you've made it this far, there was your treat. It's like a reward.
If they want... Okay, so literally, you could be 70% better at your GCSEs by just doing what we've talked about.
Isn't that an incredible statistic to think about how important study timetables are?
Oh my goodness. I need to go away and make a timetable.
Absolutely, I can make one for work at this point.
Yeah. Can you make one for me as well?
If I'm feeling fancy, if I'm feeling nice. Make me a coffee and then we'll see.
Perfect.
But yeah, I think we've got a pretty good overview there.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. So there's our top tips for this week. About study timetables, making sure that you're staying on top of everything, things are organised, balanced, reducing our stress levels so we can feel more at peace, more in control, and hopefully see an academic performance rise by 70%, but who knows? You can test that one for us at home.
Yeah.
So next week we are going to be talking about mastering your exam techniques, going into detail a little bit about what examiners are looking for, so kind of how to manage your time in exams, planning your essays correctly, a whole bunch of techniques which if you've got mocks coming up will be super important. Make sure you come and tune into that one. Have your post notifications on so you don't miss an episode, and then you will see mine and Will's gorgeous faces next week, where we'll give you some more gold dust knowledge.
That sounds really exciting.
Very exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
See you then.